Welcome to the latest episode of the B Movie Club. I'm your host, Kevin. This week, we're going to be doing the horror comedy classic, Return of the Living Dead. For those of you joining us the first time, it's like a book club where early in the week, I'll tell you what movie I'm going to be talking about, and you can send in your questions, comments, favorite quotes, favorite scenes, and I'll talk about them on the show. You can reach me at this page on YouTube. You can reach me on Twitter at KD9575, and I'm on Facebook as well. So feel free to send those in, please. Hope everyone's having a wonderful Thanksgiving vacation, and thank you for joining me this week. Return of the Living Dead from 1984, directed by Dan O'Bannon, who is mostly famous for he wrote Alien, the original Alien. He later went on to direct, write Life Force as well. He's known more as a writer than a director, but Tobe Hooper, who did Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Poltergeist, was originally supposed to direct this movie, but he pulled out for scheduling reasons. Basically, the way it worked is the original Night of the Living Dead was done in the late 60s by George Romero, but was also written by his writing partner named Russo. And after that movie, they kind of split up, went their separate ways. George Romero kept basically all the zombie lore that they created over the course of that movie, but Russo was able to keep the words Living Dead. That's why George Romero's movies don't ever say Living Dead anymore. It's Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead, etc. Whereas Russo went on to write his script for Return of the Living Dead. And he turned it in, and they sold it, and basically they handed it to Dan O'Bannon. And he looked at it and was like, well, I'll do it, but I've got to totally rewrite the script. So he basically tossed Russo's script out the window and came up with his own thing, because he didn't want to step on too many of George Romero's toes. Because at this point, George Romero is basically the zombie expert. You know, he's the godfather of the zombie, if you will. So he tossed out that script and started over from scratch. He said, basically, we'll talk about Night of the Living Dead, and they actually do mention it ever so briefly at the beginning of the movie. But all the rules that have been established as to how you can kill the zombies, he said, forget that. And he started over. Everything you see in the movie came from Dan O'Bannon's brain. Basically, these zombies are totally indestructible. The only way you can kill them is like if you burn them up to dust, essentially. Whereas before, if you destroyed the zombie's brain, that would kill him. No, that doesn't do anything to these guys. And then he added the whole brains thing, where it's like now they walk around saying brains, brains, and are trying to eat your brains. That wasn't in any of the original Night of the Living Dead stuff. So he totally redid it. The zombies are a lot more athletic, a lot quicker than they were in the original Night of the Living Dead. They also seem to have some intelligence, because at times you see them talking to the CB, saying, send more paramedics, send more cops. Basically, they want more brains to get at. So that's kind of an interesting take on it. Basically, the plot is this. There is like a medical supply warehouse in Louisville, Kentucky. And in the basement of this warehouse, there are these old like drums, like barrels, where when the original Night of the Living Dead occurred, they scooped up the zombies and basically put them in these barrels, okay, for some reason, who knows. And they were sent to this medical supply warehouse on accident. So the two, like, stock boys, night watchmen, whatever they are, who are working there, go down to the basement and are kind of fooling around with it, and they accidentally open one of the canisters. So the gas or whatever comes out of the canister and basically fills up the entire medical supply warehouse with this gas that brings everything back to life in that warehouse, which includes a lot of like butterflies pinned to the board, and there's like a half dog that I guess is sent to a veterinary school. It's kind of barking in the corner. Meanwhile, there's also like a body that's in the I guess it's like a refrigerating unit. It kind of wakes up. So they're like, okay, so they call the boss, tell him what has happened. He comes down. They decide they need to get rid of all the evidence because they're afraid that they'll get in trouble or whatever. So they take the one body and they can't kill it. They try to kill it. So they chop it up into little pieces. Take it over to the mortuary, the crematorium next door, and try to tell that guy who's working late that night, of course, that they want to burn up the the body in his crematorium. So he agrees to do it, and that sends all the smoke and stuff up into the clouds, and it rains down into the graveyard next door. Meanwhile, one of the Stock Boys' buddies, or I should say his group of buddies, are waiting for him to get off work. They're all a bunch of punk rocker types with mohawks and leather jackets. They're waiting for him in the cemetery, of course. So the zombies come back from the grave, and hilarity ensues. I remember seeing this movie as a child and being terrified by it, like literally having nightmares over it. It wasn't until years and years later that I realized it was basically a comedy. There's a lot of slapstick going on, a lot of like just goofiness. The lines are funny. Overall, it was disturbing because there really wasn't any way out for the people. Like I said, you can't really kill the zombies, so you're just kind of you're in trouble, basically, to put it nicely. Was not a huge success at the box office, as you might imagine. And I know a lot of the hardcore zombie files look at this movie and say like, "Oh, it's baloney," because it doesn't follow the hard and fast rules that we've all come to expect. People who don't watch zombie movies don't know what I'm talking about, but zombie files are very specific about what constitutes a zombie movie and what is a mockery to their delicate sensibilities. So there you have that. It was an 89% fresh on Rotten Tomatoes, which is kind of rare for these kind of movies, so you know it's good. I highly recommend it to anybody who doesn't mind a little hot zombie action. If zombies are not your cup of tea, I might steer clear. But this movie has a special place in my heart because it is kind of wacky. It does have a lot of funny little scenes that are going on. Next week, we'll be doing the action sci-fi movie from the early 80s, Flash Gordon, starring Max von Sydow and Sam Jones in like his only role ever. So be sure to send in your questions, comments, favorite quotes, favorite scenes. It is streaming instantly on Netflix, just like Return of the Living Dead is also streaming instantly. If you have Netflix, you have a computer, feel free to watch them. And again, you can reach me on Twitter, KD9575. Leave comments on the YouTube page, leave it on my Facebook page. Like always, I end every episode with my totally out of context quote, and here it is. You think this is a costume, man? This is a way of life. So if you've seen the movie, you know exactly where that scene is from. Otherwise, you're like, what is he talking about? Again, I hope you are enjoying the episodes. Lately, I have changed the theme song. It's Vivaldi. I hope you like that. If you have any other ideas about what I could do for my theme music, please feel free to send that in. Also, some of you may have noticed that there are starting to include like ads. So theoretically, I'm supposed to get some cash from putting ads on my video. Hey, sounds good. So please, I'm sure I get more loot based upon the number of eyeballs that see my videos. So please pass it along, tell your friends, and thank you for joining us, and be well.